So the guest I'm joined with today, this is, I would say there's a high sentimental value, I think, to this conversation that is about to take place today, really, because director Abhiraj Minawala, right? I've known him since the beginning of his sort of directorial journey. LoveYatri, I remember meeting him on the sets of LoveYatri, and since then he has been, I would say, a real tour de force and someone who's always been so passionate and optimistic about cinema, and someone who genuinely is, who's, I would say, is more than just a dynamic between a journo and a director. He's almost been like a friend. And I'm actually so proud because we are sitting here today to talk about a film that has really broken through, and it's been a brilliant, brilliant one at that. And that is, of course, Mardani 3. So, Abhiraj, it's so good to see you, and I'm so glad that we're reuniting after so many years for an interview. And what a film to be reuniting for as well.
Thank you, Anuj, for having me here. It's great talking to you always. I mean, it doesn't feel like I'm talking to you after ages because, I think that's where we just connect and, it just always feels like it's just been like a few hours that we've spoken. But yeah, I mean, great to doing this with you. And this, to be honest, doesn't feel like an interview. It feels like a nice, fun chat with a friend.
Course. No, for sure, definitely. Well, look, I think Abhiraj, I think your association with kind of with YRF, I mean, before coming up to Mardani, it goes a long back. You've worked on some tentpole films actually of the production house. I think what Ban Baja Barat you've worked on, Sultan you've worked on Jab Tak Hai Jaan, to name a few. Um, so I feel like your foundation as a filmmaker really has come from that school of filmmaking. How has that, in a way, kind of transpired for you, especially when it came to your vision and your approach to making Mardani 3 as well?
So, you rightly said the school of film, it's for me, Yash Raj YRF is my film school. I never ever had any sort of formal education in making movies. For me, as soon as I graduated from college in Bombay, I started working. My first film here was Rocket Singh, and my journey began with Rocket Singh, going into Band Baja Barat, and just many more films. And I always had this want that I wanted to, finish a couple of films and then go to film school, study. It never happened. This became my film school. This is where I learned everything. And I feel that, right from the first film till my association with even a film like War 2, uh, it somewhere kind of shaped me up and it was preparing me to, take on a film like Mardaani 3. I think it was not about uh, what all has gone into it. It's more about, when the time was right. And it's, sometimes you have to put the good things on a slow burner. I think for me, it was a slow burn process that taught me through the various films that I've been associated with, the various directors that I've been associated with, the various actors that I've worked with.
No, it's actually amazing. And it's interesting actually because from Lavyatri to Mardani 3, I mean, like you mentioned as well, like there was a bit of a brief gap. But also in between that gap, obviously because the pandemic had happened and the world was going through a drastic change period at that time. But you still kept yourself going though, didn't you? You kind of still had like music videos coming out. You were still kind of doing stuff creatively, perhaps not to that level that might have necessarily been satisfactory, in that sense, but you were still keeping yourself busy, right? I think, before we go back into the film again, how important was it to, I think, keep your creative juices going, especially at a time when, the world was going through this massive transition period as well?
No, I mean, I think it's very important when it comes to filmmaking that remember one thing, it's always important to keep learning. You're going to keep learning every single day of your life as a filmmaker. You're going to interact with new people, new crew, new talent, new equipment, new technology. You got to stay up to date with that. When an assistant director, you work on different films, so you're always in sync with it. For me, after Lavyatri, of course, the pandemic hit. There was a film I was meant to do at that point of time, which had to be, called off. And for myself as well, at that point, I was in a, it was a tough situation where uh, mentally I wasn't sure what I'm doing, what kind of film should I do. Uh, there was a feeling that one should see Lavyatri is a film that did not achieve the commercial success that probably I would have imagined it to.
Right.
Uh, so then one started feeling, is it the right kind of film to make? Shall we make this kind of film? This is working right now. And when you are forcing yourself to try and adapt to the scenario around you, as opposed to make a film that you really connect with. Uh, at that point, I remember just putting the brakes on and picking up the phone on people that I know and I can trust, Manish Sharma, uh, Shiv Ravel, close friends of mine. And, they were like, yeah, just take it easy, come to YRF, let's chat. Came to YRF, met Manish, and he was like, why don't you meet Adi? Met Adi, sir. And he's like, okay, I think I have something in mind for you. It's a very different role. It's a niche role. It's to do with designing and executing action sequences. And that's where my journey began in Tiger 3, where I didn't know it, but he somewhere saw that I had a knack for action. I myself didn't know about that. And so that was created me very satisfactory because I was able to then work on these sequences, work with different talents, like from, an action director from South Africa, like France House, to, action directors from Korea, which is, you've got Oh Young. All these guys have worked on the biggest films possible. Um, that really, really helped me keep going because then you know that, when you're working and you're learning, you know that the creative juices are at play. You know that the process is right. Then it kind of becomes about trusting the process. A lot of people were like, there were some people who were like, oh, acha, वापस AD ban gaya. And I was like, yeah, so what? It's, just going back to a comfort space. Why not? Sometimes I joke with my wife and we talk about it that LoveYatri happened, which was my diploma film. Then I've come back to Wire to do my master's. And now I really set out there. But yeah, happy, great diploma film that too.
Yeah, no.
But yes, it's been a very, very tough journey. It's honestly, uh, it's the people who obviously been there for me who know how tough it's been. But their support has been phenomenal. That has kept me going.
No, absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, this is it, isn't it? Like, I think people will always have something to say, and I think even if you do become, someone who is almost unreachable or this massive, like, sort of gatekeeper of a certain industry or whatever, right? People will still have something to say. And I think, I think the way you've looked at it, I think is so beautiful because I think that's exactly what it is. Sometimes, actually revisiting um our roots actually in a way helps us to really, sometimes, like, there's that whole saying that, a lion always takes his steps back before he pounces and makes that jump, right? So I think sometimes it's good to take those steps back, and I'm
Yeah,
glad that you did. And Tiger 3 was actually really, the action scenes were great in that. And I think I'm glad that you really did that. And then obviously then, as a natural progression, Mardani 3
yeah.
happened with you. um Now, Mardani 3 for me is, I would say, one of my favorite all-time cop films because it's a complete detour from the commercial cop stories that we've seen in Hindi cinema, right?
Mhm.
And obviously, you've got a huge superstar like Rani Mukerji, right, who headlines it, who adds that almost commercial factor into it. But actually,
Yeah.
the film is very gritty. It's earthy. And I remember mentioning this to Rani ma'am when I interviewed her, and also to Prajesh as well, plays the villain in the film. That, you know, what I'm always fascinated by is the fact that it has the rich, vibrant color schemes that I think YRF is so has beautifully always shown, in their films, that rich, vibrant colors. It makes it really, sort of brights up the screen. But then at the same time, it's kind of juxtaposed with camera shots and editing that's razor sharp. It's, the cinematography is, it's very much earthy, right? Like, it takes you into the
Mhm.
gullies where you feel like you're not meant to be there.
mm,
And I'm just so fascinated by the technical aspects as well in this film. For you to get that fusion, because I kind of got a hint of that in Love Yatri, you know. For example, I remember when you had Sushrut's, as in Ayush Sharma's character, the home that, you know, the way you use the camera techniques to use that, and it
mm,
was very bright as well, but also earthy.
mm.
So do you think that, you know, somehow these, because you've also had this training anyway from YRF, do you think somehow it really came to fruition for you when it came to the technical aspects, you know, of doing Mardani 3?
Yeah. See, of course, like I said, when you've worked on so many films with so many great technicians and directors, they of course leave an impact on you. They help you subconscious. For me, with Madani, the language that I wanted to follow was, making sure the film definitely has a commercial appeal. At the same time, making it very gritty. Uh, so there came in my DOP, Arthur Zaraski, who actually shot the first Madani as well. And I had worked with him closely on Sultan, where my brief to him was, why can we make the camera as another person in the room? You know, can the language be of a certain manner where when the audience is watching it in the theater, it gives some of them that eerie feeling that they are present in that scenario. They are present in that setup, in that street, or in that warehouse, or in that police station. And hats off to him, like his camera placement, his choice of lenses, the lighting, it all really, really matters a lot. Where he really put my what I had in mind, he actually gave it proper good structure and presented it so beautifully.
No, absolutely. I think it's interesting though, isn't it? Because I feel like the only time where we have that vibrant film, I mean, obviously at the beginning of the film where it's in the jungle and that whole sting operation's happening,
Mm,
and the undercover operation rather is happening. See, there it's kind of vibrant, right? Like it's got the hari bari kind of feel because
mm,
it's the jungle and all of that, and obviously it's dim lighting to give it that whole atmosphere. But then I think it's what the pre-climax scene, I think, where the main fight happens, and that's when we realize what Ramanujan, what he really
mm,
is, you know. That scene, and I think I mentioned this to you as well. Like I loved how there's like very neon kind of colors that you've got there. You've got like the pinks, you've got the blues, and all these colors that are there. And it almost feels like a comic book style of an
mm,
atmosphere in an otherwise very earthy and rooted film, right?
mm,
So I think for you to, what kept that balance, I think, for you, and the color palette and the choice of colors, I would absolutely love to know because see, you also, when I spoke about balance earlier, I also meant because see, Mardani as a franchise has its, style of telling
mm,
its story. So not only do you bring your spin to it as a filmmaker, but then you also have to adhere to what the franchise visual grammar
mm.
is as well,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah, I mean, so the thing is, my process is such that I actually like to break down my entire film uh, on and start visualizing it. Where I start creating visuals with color palettes on my own, on AI, where I use Mid Journey. So for me, that really is a very helpful process because I start seeing each setup of mine, where I start breaking it down and I start taking it scene by scene. So in case of Mazdani, it started with the open fields. What is the look that I want for the open field? What is the mood that I wanted to bring in there? And it's a process. It's a very lonely process because I do it just by myself, where I get into this mode where I just keep working on it till I find that one image that strikes me. And then for my entire brief of a sequence, it's one image. I don't overload it. So I know, okay, this is the right image. So like that, I break down the entire film. For me, it became easy to present it to my DOP that, okay, this is how I'm seeing the film. This is the color palette, this is the zone. It's not something which I can easily say that, oh, I wanted the reds or I wanted this to stand out. You know, it's a process of self-discovering that as I'm working on it, this feels right, this doesn't feel right, and how it kind of comes together. Um, it's almost like earlier we used to do it back in the day with Pinterest and reference images. But now it becomes more detailed with AI, and I think it's a great tool if you know how to use it and can actually, work with it to enhance your film. I think it's great. So that actually was really a helpful process for me. And uh, the other thing was between Madani 1 and 2, I felt 1 was more raw in its approach and camera style. And hence, obviously, Arthur was the one who shot it and when he came on. I kind of resonated more with that raw style. I wanted to keep it more raw, real, and gritty, not manicured. Uh, if you see some of the, sometimes a lot of things, there are a lot of imperfections there in the film. Now, when I'm talking about imperfections, I'm talking about in performances. You may hear certain actors who are tense or nervous or angry, and they may not have said a certain line with clarity. I've actually maintained that because that's what happens in reality. You know, uh, in terms of when you're angry, you may blurt out a lot of things, and some things may be unclear, but the message is gone. The real emotion comes out. When it came down to shooting real live locations. So yeah, the other thing, important thing was I did not want to shoot the film too much on set. I really wanted to get out there and get real locations because I feel the real location adds so much value and so much life into the film. Where once you know that this is the space that you want to make the film in and this is your treatment, and then you go to a location that's offering that to you, the location does the rest for you. And then, of course, you have these great actors who are coming in and bringing in their performance. So it's a whole team effort where the production designer is thinking from, the DOP is thinking from, where costume designers are thinking from. And when everyone's effort kind of comes together, that's what you were seeing there. So it's not just something that I thought of. Yes, I was leaning towards certain style. The DOP heard me, absorbed that, executed, and put his life and soul into it. So did the production designer, so did every other team member of mine. That's when you're seeing what you're seeing.
Right, no, absolutely. And I think, of course, filmmaking is always a collaborative effort, but I think definitely the kudos does go to you for sure for like I think at least envisioning it, And um it's interesting because I feel like times I think the timing of Madani 3 for your life actually has aligned very well. Because see, I think the subject is as such, and I feel like it's a lot it's scary because I say that about every of the Madani film because I mean obviously they're very disturbing stuff and obviously it's it tackles issues which are very rampant in our society today and that there have been so many cases
Yeah,
of such as well but um I think being the father of a girl you know that changes things and
absolutely.
even if one would have felt passionate about the cause prior to you being a father of a child um the responsibility feels different, right? Because obviously now you're able to kind of practically understand it, and it's terrifying, to see what happens to the girls in the film that it actually happens in a daily life, and it is really, really terrifying. But I think, do you think that because you are, the dad of a girl, do you think that kind of in a way has added a sense of a moral layering and responsible layering as well? I think when telling the story, because it almost felt quite personal in some places as well, because obviously Rani ma'am is also the mother of a daughter, right? So it almost felt like parents almost in a way taking a stance for their children through cinema and actually,
Yeah, yeah.
alerting the public to what can happen, in some way. Yeah.
No, no, you're absolutely right about it. Like, I'll be very honest with you. At this, I think everything in life is meant to happen when the time is right. You know, um, uh, just going back to Jab Tak Hai Jaan, that very famous dialogue that Rishi Kapoor says, कि प्यार गलत नहीं था, बस वक्त सही नहीं था. जब वक्त सही होगा तब सब सही होता है. तो प्यार भी सही होता है. I'm obviously getting a dialogue completely wrong, but you know what I mean. So for me, I think if Mardani would have come to me prior to becoming a father, I would have probably approached it as a very important subject, technically given it all. But that additional passion that drove me to make this film was the fact that I'm a father of a daughter, being a girl dad, reading it, experiencing those tears. now the more I read it and the more I was researching into the film and, working towards it, a lot more fears were kind of creeping in. Natural, because you're like, this can happen, that can happen, this can go wrong. So the whole idea was to harness those fears and actually put it out there through the film. Uh, like I think I've said this earlier, film is made less as a filmmaker but more as a father. Even with Rani ma'am, I think the performance that's coming out is being a mother of a daughter. Even with my DOP, Arthur, many a times, when we were on set and when we're putting the camera down there and it's like his angle working and then he would come to me and be like, I think if we place it here, it might be a little more freaky. It would freak me out for sure. That's what he would tell me. And he would do that. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right about it. So we all, I think, kind of put our fears, what would freak us out, and put it out there because it's so important that people are also aware of what's happening. Yes, we are, of course, making a film for entertainment. But at the same time, if that can help people just get more aware of their surroundings, of what's actually going on out there, uh, that was actually really, really what I wanted to set up, what I set out to do. And I feel it's important today as parents that we give that time to our children. And yeah, a lot of times when I would finish shoot, just go back and like hug my daughter and my son and not say anything and just like continue with life. But there were some fears then, that that this journey is actually going to at least help some people.
No, it's true. Like, you know what? It's actually really scary. I was just like, just a bit of an aside. Like, I've been looking at Instagram, right, on reels and stuff, and I've been literally seeing reels about like how you should leave your window, like वो जो wipers अगर खुले रहते हैं तो फिर उसको खुले रहने दे. If you find stuff near your car, you should leave it because apparently traffickers might be monitoring you, and it these things are really real. And what I think Mardani shows, obviously there's going to be heightened drama, and obviously it's going to have its kind of thoda sa escapist flavor to banta hi hai
Yeah,
because it's not a documentary, right?
of course.
But what it kind of also like tackles beggar mafia, but then also it becoming like essentially just a tool to satisfy someone's capitalist ambition.
Mm,
I think that is what really scares me. So much terror is happening in one's country, but then globally, it's only there to satisfy someone's ego and arrogance and their god-like sort of complex. I think
mm,
that's what terrified me the most, actually. And I felt like, I think when it came to tackling the subject itself, uh, I would love to know what was your sort of, I mean, I know you just touched on it in your response, but what was your um sort of reaction, I think, to the subject at hand, and how did you kind of approach it, I think, not from a cinematic perspective, but just
mhm.
as you as a human.
So the first time I read it, uh, my first reaction was, wow. So Ayush was, has this, has this happened? And he's like, yes. In his research, he's gone and he's seen it. He showed me some videos of people who've gone out and spoken about the fact that how easy it is sometimes to get uh, human trials done in India. You just catch a small district or a small village and you can get it done. And that part of it was really scary. And the videos that I saw are of prominent personalities, who are talking about it. And yeah. I mean, if you actually go through Instagram and you search the channel, it popped up on my feed for sure. And yes, so that definitely has happened. And when you hear that, and when you hear, of course, this thing of beggar mafia is very real. Today for a lot of your audience who's actually sitting there in UK, you may not know it, but when you do visit India and when you do see it, if you actually just spend time and watch the streets, and you realize that it sometimes is not what you're seeing. It's all been fabricated. These people have been placed there. They've been kind of forced into being there. And if you actually spend time in just indulging a conversation of, yeah, you seem to be fine, healthy guy. Why don't you work? Why don't you do something? and they have this look that this is my job. It's a full industry that's running, you know, and of course, that I'm talking about this guy who's 20 something. It's not like he's just entered into this job right now. He was probably picked up when he was a kid. He was conditioned into it. He's been made into an addict by whatever it is that they're injecting in them and however their process is. And it's so rare. Like very recently, I'm talking about 2 days back, and my wife, Shweta, she called me and she's like, what's popped up on one of the parents' WhatsApp groups. And she showed me a picture of a child who was sitting on the streets amongst beggar kids, and like a lot of other beggars who did not look like he belonged there. Seemed like he was from a well-to-do household and was just scared and sitting there. And this person took the picture was a mother who put it up in the group, uh, which is great that she made us aware about it. But uh, you know, she wasn't able to approach that child. He's completely surrounded by these people. But I'm hoping that that image made, traveled across, and hopefully that kid is fine. But that happens. It's very much out there. So it's not something that is or was a problem. It is a real problem. Like I'm talking about while researching the film when we went into Delhi, into the slums of Delhi, where the film is set. Uh, went into a house and I'm like, there's this really old lady who was sitting there and like just looking around, and we happy to talk to her. And both her son and daughter-in-law, uh, they worked as part of the beggar network, and they would just come back. And the father, no, he wasn't there, but he was also on the streets with them. So it's very much out there. So when you realize that uh, today you're sitting in your AC car, going from your home to your office, you drive past these people every day. Now they become a part of your, they just you feel that they're meant to be there, or it's there, or you just ignore them, or you choose to ignore them. But for how long?
Yeah, this is yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, the fact that this lady, so this lady was that the mother of the child that was there in the streets, or just a normal looking child that she saw, or not normal,
A
sorry,
normal looking child.
yeah.
I mean, he was so. Let's put it this way: like, he was wearing he did not seem like he was a part of uh,
Yeah,
the
sorry,
beggar
normal
family.
wasn't the word I wanted to use there, but just like looked as if he was, different from the
Yeah,
other kids that were there, basically,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Scary. No, it's terrifying, man. Like it really is. And I think also when I say terrifying, I feel like out of all the Mardani films, Shivani Shivaji Roy seems to be most terrified of this case, you know? And it definitely feels like the stakes are so much higher in this one because, you know,
Hmm,
the villain this time is essentially someone who is a woman, right? And someone who's older. Because until now, it's always been, younger men. And obviously, here later on in the film, we find out that there was obviously like a younger man also involved. But, I think that's what really terrifies,
hmm,
you know, Shivani Shivaji Roy. And you can feel like a sense of vulnerability. There is a vulnerability, but there's also that sense of fierceness as well that's also there. Like that's the sort of vibe I got from Shivani in this film.
hmm,
Um, I think what was Rani Ma'am's mindscape actually at the time of filmmaking, especially when it came to the subject. And as a and honestly, she's such a skilled actor. Like I think like literally, you just need to say go, and she'll get to the skin of it, right? Like that's how brilliant she is as an actor. So for you, I'm sure there must have been. I would love to know what was your kind of uh sort of brief, or sort of what was the sort of synergy like, I think, for you with her in that sense, because I would love to know that, because I think for a mindscape, I think it's very interesting to understand
hmm.
what one's position was at that point. Yeah.
So, after having read through the script, made my notes, it finally came down where I sat down with her and we kind of doing our sessions of breaking down this entire script and going scene by scene. What I really wanted to do was understand and start seeing the film from her perspective. Her perspective not being that of Rani Mukerji, the actor, but the fact that she is Shivani Shivaji Roy. She's played it in two films. She knows the character better than anyone, more than the writer, I feel, because she lives it, she breathes it. And one thing that definitely we kept in mind was that even Shivani has, over the years, grown in ranks. There's a lot more maturity that even she has now got its character growing, starting from the first film to now. Um, and yes, we also were aware that, it's important that we even show a vulnerable side uh, of Shivani, because today what happens is when you come across an unexpected a villain or foe where you did not expect it to be a woman, and that too a woman who's come down into your house and challenged you. Shivani is not someone who's shy from a challenge, but it does throw you off, you know. Then and a personal attack is made on your family, which happens in this case. It does throw you off more even.
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, in Mardani, a life was lost under her watch. The interval point when Rohani's life is lost. Uh, Normally, it's always in previous films that the crime has happened, there has been a victim, and then she comes in, and now of course takes over the case. Here, in this case, the victim was very much alive, but unfortunately, because of that twist, and because of we had this character Ramanujan who was kind of playing in the shadows and did manage to kill Rohani. For her, it's even more personal. And then what gets even more personal, and what really really wires her up is the fact that then she's been asked to put the case down and hand it over to the local police, because they were in it only for let's say the VIP girl. But it's not about that. It's about a child. It's two kids were missing, and now it's like 93 missing. Yes, we've lost one life, but we have to go on. And somewhere down the line, it was a system, but she felt the system was also kind of failing her. And
True.
when it wasn't actually. I mean, when you come to think about it, when you're just thinking from, let's say, the DGP NIA's perspective, right? He was doing his job. NIA is meant for terror-related activities, right? Well, it's the national intelligence. Uh, they thought there could have been possible terror links because it's the daughter of an ambassador. Hence, she's brought on. Of course, you continue the case. Now, yes, you realize it's not a terror link. NIA needs to go back to addressing matters which are big, which concern national security. Uh, but yes, this officer was invested in the case. So what do you do? No, no one's wrong. Neither of them are wrong in this. But yes, she felt like the system was failing her because she was like within inches of cracking this, because it became a lot more personal. A life is lost. Husband is attacked. So the overall approach was meant to be a lot more personal than the first two films. And like I told you, like we discussed earlier, also coming from the point of view that you're a parent now and you're making this film as a parent. So that makes a big difference.
No, definitely. And I think she did such a splendid job. Like, I think that end scene. So my mom loved the film, right? And I remember when she was watching it on Netflix, like she was so engrossed like in the film and literally like very disturbed because obviously Rani ma'am literally I told her as well when Mr. Chatterjee versus Norway came out just तरह से वो हिप के like रो रही थी and I literally mix up Gujarati and Hindi there but the way she was like
Yeah,
सिसक सिसक के रो रही थी right उस वक्त
yeah,
I was like it was I've never seen her cry in like in a film like that and then here the way the way like at the end when the whole fight scene happens and the dialogues that are there in the last scene God, those are now that is social messaging done through art beautifully because these are messaging that could have been used as like figures on screen. You could have easily made it into something that's very preachy and like almost shoving it down the audience's throat. But here, no, it was almost like it was how do I say it? It was almost like it actually felt like whips, you know, with the way she was saying it, quite literally. And I think that was so empowering. And my mom's reaction was like, "Marusko, you know, because, you know, it just felt like you needed to get that out there. And I think like what uh I think what Prajesh said to me as well, it's about catharsis, right? Mardani essentially is about catharsis. It's
Yeah.
about, you know, having that ending that, you know, chahe kuch bhi ho jaye, but you know, the police force will always be the people who safeguard or who have the responsibility to protect people will always be the ones who do that in the end, right? And I think the Aigiri Nandini, like I told you as well, the way that was used was absolutely powerful. And I remember I think it's the Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu mantra that was used in the first
Mm.
one with Sunidhi Chauhan's vocals. I
Yeah.
love the way how it's also kind of adhered to, you know, Shakti, right? Because we in our
Mm.
culture, Shakti is a force of strength. She's a force
Yeah.
of, you know, conquering evil, or, you know, good conquering over evil. So I would love if you could talk me through that part as well a little bit. That would be really nice actually, because that must have been a tough scene to shoot as well.
I mean, see, every scene was a tough one to shoot, right? And but that one, of course, was really important to us to sum it up. I mean, today, India, or worldwide, I mean, when it comes down to the number of crimes that are happening against women, against girls, and I mean, the reason I say India because uh, crimes are happening. Sometimes you have a lot of people who have this mindset that वो लड़की ने कुछ गलत किया होगा, you know, that feeling is there. या उसने कुछ मतलब it's sad, but that's the reality, and people think like that. And I'm not talking about your top metro cities. I'm talking about the rest of India. And having said that, we also, and the rest of India, the entire India, worships goddesses. So I don't understand. The balance is not there when you are worshipping a goddess. At the same time, majority of these crimes happen against women because we start seeing them as a weaker member of society. That's the perception that these people have on a larger front, and that's something you want to break down. You know, we how do we do it? We do it. Uh, we just felt it's the simplest way possible because by now in the film you know that okay, the girls are safe. They get into where they're meant to get to. But now it's about this female cop, this mother, this woman, uh, this daughter, this sister, you know, who can just voice it out for all the women possible that it's as simple as this. Why crimes against us? Because you think we're weaker? Now let me show you we're not weaker. And you know, it's just something that comes from within. And honestly, at that point of time, I think most of yeah, I think almost most of those shots were all single takes. Uh, because the power, that
Wow.
emotion, that feeling that came out, it just came out bang in the first go. I never rehearsed it. We never, yes, we rehearsed the action and stuff, but when it came down to, with her emotions coming out, it was all in one go. And and a lot of credit for I believe Nandini goes to Rani ma'am, where she had actually mentioned to me earlier.
Hmm.
It was a thing during the Durga Puja time, and we somehow incorporated and surprisingly at that point of time, I finished editing the first half, and the interval section was scored, and we had John, our BGM composer, who presented I Get Nandini to me, and I'm like, wait, she spoke about it, and you presented it to me. It's just meant to happen.
Oh
Before
wow.
I could even tell him, and yeah. It just works, right? When the ball gets rolling, when
Yeah.
everyone's kind of aligned to making the right film, with the energy set is kind of translating around in the right way. And honestly, it wasn't too much thinking. I heard it and I was like, wait a minute, this is what she just spoke about, and it's meant to be. And yes, that climax was the idea was to make it powerful. Uh, I'll be honest, I have not received so much appreciation ever. Uh, because the number of women that have reached out on Instagram, mothers, daughters. I don't know. I mean, they just people I don't know have just reached out and just been like, "Thank you for making a film like this." If you would have seen my Instagram probably around the time of release, it was all to do with the climax footage, which I was trying to cover up with different. Because I didn't want it to go out that it's Suresh, uh, but yes, all of them were like, thank you for making a film like that. Is not what I expected. It's definitely not what I expected. For me, I wanted to make a film that, yes, translates. There's a wider appreciation. People enjoy it. People love the film. Uh, you know, it's profitable film for the producer, for the studio. Uh, you and I don't think anyone could have ever said this that we were expecting a thanks from the audience, and then there was so much appreciation and love that came through, and it's still coming through because the film's now on Netflix. A lot of people who did not get a chance to go watch the film back then in theaters are now watching it on Netflix, and a lot of love is coming in from there as well. So yeah, it's really uh, sometimes you just you don't know what to say or speak when you hear so much appreciation from people.
Yeah, man. No, but you deserve it. No, really, you deserve every ounce of it. And I think also Rani Mukherjee for me has always been someone about compassion and empathy, and I think she's always brought that to her roles. And I think this is exactly why I've loved
Mm,
her ever since, because I remember telling you this actually, like there's this one scene I think in the film where she's holding the baby, right? एक बच्चे को
mm,
पकड़ रही है वो. And it took me back to Satya days. जब before when
mm.
she's at that I think either at a hospital या फिर वो hospital वो जो medical camp पे लगता है, one of those two.
Before they get married, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and she's holding that baby. And then also it then took me back to Kuch Kuch Hota Hai days. When she's literally Tina and she's holding like little Anjali in the hand. So I feel like from the very early onset, she's always had this very motherly, compassionate, empathetic nature in her, which is why she's able to really beautifully bring these characters out, you
Mm.
know? And I just wanted to just drop that thought in there. But I've also got to really appreciate Prajesh and Malika here as well. Amma and Ramanujan respectively. Um, they were phenomenal in the film. I mean, Malika is such a great actor. I saw her in Aspirants recently, and she is
Mm.
such a tremendous, tremendous artist. I mean, even Prajesh as well. These are actors who, from what I've gauged, are very practical in their approach. They don't deepen the process too much. Unka, I think from what I've understood from the interviews that I've seen, is that they just like to go in, understand the skin of the role, and go for it. Was that exactly the sort of vibe you got as well for whilst working with them as well on set?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, we actually spent a lot of time, me and the different actors, in our prep and pre-production time, just understanding and reading of uh, who the person really is, what this character really is. Uh, and of course, Ayush, our writer, was a part of this process where, first him and me wanted to understand from the actor, how are they seeing this character? What are they feeling about this? Uh, Ayush had his points, I had my points, and then we kind of arrived at, what Amma should really be and what Ramanujan really should be. And we kind of set that bar. And then yes, on set it became easier because then we knew that this is a realm and the range in which we need to be in. How menacing to be. Sometimes it's very easy. See, the character of Amma was written very well. It's a very strong character. But we've seen it many times that a lot of these characters can easily be overperformed. A lot of these characters can tilt towards being a little caricaturish, or they can kind of, after a point, leave the impact and become a little loose. So it's very important that once we speak with Amma, we didn't let her dip. We kind of maintained that going. We kind of made sure that Amma became like this myth, and you know less of her, which makes it more scarier. Similarly with Ramanujan, the whole idea of Ramanujan also was that for me, I always saw him, and Rajesh agreed with this, was this person who's emotionless. He's been through and seen so much in life at such a young age, where there's no more emotion involved. It's only when he's play acting and has to be this other person in front of in society. is when his emotions kick in. Otherwise, he's actually very calculative and very mechanical, even like in whatever he's doing. Uh, is a kind of person who would eat food and drink water because you have to, not because you like to. You know, it's that kind of a person. Like it's a scientific process for him. Like if I don't consume it, I'm not going to survive. It's that. So he's really that sort of a person and that sort of a character. Amma is very different. We worked around her where, for me, like this whole backstory of Amma that we had was, like we knew that yes, she was a victim of the beggar mafia herself. She's a victim of human trafficking herself. She became a victim where she then was led into the flesh trade, uh, and then you know we kind of what is not in the script or there, but in our conversation was in that process when she was a part of the flesh trade, she probably would have been picked up in a certain car on many occasions, and that's why she has bought that same car. So you see that the car that she enters in is a vintage white Mercedes. Why is it that it's vintage car in today's day and age? Because she's the kind of person that if something wrong happened to me that's wrong in this car or in this person, I want that. Even the Haveli that she's in was probably a place where something wrong or something bad has happened to her in the past. And then she made up that I'm going to get this space. So we really had to build her up in that sense. And that's the whole thing, with Palika and with Rajesh. We sat down and really had this uh, sessions where even jointly the two of them together of what is Ramanujan and what is Amma. Why this chemistry? Why this so-called mother-son love? Because she somewhere sees a part of herself in him, and for him, you know, if you think about it, she is the one reason why his hand was cut. But still, she's the one who actually facilitated what he wanted to do. Give him that stepping stone to kind of go and educate himself and empower himself, and did not force him into becoming a part of the system. But he came back. He was grateful to her, and he comes back to it. When you think deeper into these negative characters, they're also doing things with reason.
Absolutely, no, very well said. And I think it's interesting because we see that trauma bonding between a male and a female, like later on in Dal Dal, for example, on Prime Video, right? With Aditya Raval's character and with um uh Samara Tejori's character, right? Like in there as well, it's trauma bonding. That's kind of
Mm.
almost like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of a dynamic that's there. And it's very interesting. But what I think Mardani 3 also spotlights or is a part of really is this larger sort of storytelling trope that's taking place in the industry now, which is about women, not only voicing their pain or their wrongdoings that is happening to them, but them also taking a very stern action against it. Like I remember in 2023, we kind of had stories which were kind of along those lines, that had such themes. But here, the women are far more fierce now, and they are not stopping in taking action. Like we had Huck, last year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we've had
How
Mrs.
cool this year?
2025.
Oh, in December. Sorry, I thought it was Jan. Yeah,
Yeah. So you
you're
had
right. Yeah.
Huck, very recently. You've had obviously Dal Dal, like I mentioned, Jiraiya recently on Hotstar Disney Plus as well. Geo Hotstar,
Mm,
sorry. Now you've got
mm.
Mardani as well, again, which is literally all about, women speaking up. So I feel like it's interesting, isn't it, that this sort of we're seeing this storytelling. I feel like it's been there for a while, I feel like it's been there for a while, but it almost it's just really fascinating how it's all just releasing, consecutively, Abhiraj,
Mm.
and obviously the fact that we've got Alpha coming up as well, right, which is literally the first female-led, film in the spy
Yeah.
universe. So it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, what do you think is because this can't just be like an industry thing. This has to be a lot more deeper than that, surely.
So I don't think it's an industry thing, and I don't think that it's I I feel that it's always been there. I feel that the timing has worked out such that you've got films like you said, Mrs. Huck, Rani, all of them kind of coming out in a very close span,
Short span of time. Yeah.
and the yeah, and short span of time, and the fact that they've connected with the audience now. It's found its audience. These kind of films have found their audience out there. And also, I feel, I can say definitely for Mardani was the idea was, you know, keeping it in a very real raw space, yet having a commercial appeal. Because today, this genre is completely, you know, out there, overdone in the OTT space. How do you stand apart and make it attractive? Is to give that commercial approach. What is it, if you ask me? I have no idea. I just followed my gut and made the film. It's just something that's in the DNA. This is how I know how to make films. Uh, so when you talk about those films as well, you know, there is something in the filmmaking process, in the way it's presented, in the way the director has, or rather, of course, the way the actors have performed it, it's connecting more with the audience. I think that's a big difference. And when that happens, and I'm expecting really big stuff and great stuff from Alpha as well. It's a very dear friend of mine, Shiv, who's making that film, uh, and that's what I mean. I'm pretty certain it's going to do really well. But I feel now we are appreciating that, and I think it's about time, right? Where it's about the actor, it's the performer. It's not about hero heroine, you know, where it just becomes gender neutral. It's about the story, you
Yeah,
know.
literally. I agree with you, and I think it's nice to see that because we've also got like intense romances making a comeback. And you know, I'm glad I mentioned this because I think even my dad has said this to you as well on many occasions as well, Abhiraj, that you have this rare voice for romance. Love Yatri mein, the work that you did, and honestly, the film was actually not. It was actually it was a nice film, and I'm not just saying that because, I've had personal experiences or whatever
Mm,
with it, but even just from a neutral perspective, it was a nice film. It was pleasant. It was cute. It had this old school 2010s Hindi wala romance that we kind of
mm,
craved, like early 2010s, I'm saying.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, it did have that. But I think going forward now for you, and I think I remember speaking with you a long time back, and now that since um, yeah, I think you've also said that you wanted to do a sports film at some point in time. I remember that's been something that you've always been ambitious about, especially to do with cricket, because that is something
Mm,
which you really
yeah.
enjoy doing. But but because sports films are just so, how do I say, it's so saturated now, right?
Mm,
Do you think that do you think that it would be even more challenging now for you to make such a film in this phase of cinema? Because people are kind of done and dusted with sports dramas, and especially if it's a biopic as well, you know?
mm. See, I think what's really important is um, it's how good your story is. It's how good your script is right from the very beginning. There has to be a certain X factor in the story. You know, you can have many cricket films, but there's only one Lagan, right? You can have many other sports films, but then there's only that one Chak De.
Of course.
These films have connected with the audience at a different level, and there's of course it's a deeper thing. It's not just about a hockey team winning. It's about those 11 girls, their story. It's about them. When you find a film, when you find a story about a sports film which connects with you, which can connect with the audience, uh, then I think I think you're going to be more confident in making that, and that's actually going to be really important. Uh, you can't just be like, yeah, I'm a cricket fan and I'll make a cricket film and I'll make a biopic and there's this cricketer and let's approach him and let's just make a film on his life. Yeah, sure. I mean, his fans would love it, and yeah, if it's well made, yes, it'll be appreciated. And then there's of course the fans, the actor, uh, but it's important that the film can only be made if it is going to really connect with the audience. So that you make it personal. You need to be able to feel that. Uh, so yes, it is tough, but at the same time, if you have the right film, the right story, and if your gut tells you, and your instinct tells you to go with it, you must make it. Similarly, yes, after Sayara having done magical numbers and, everyone talking about let's go back to romance. I don't think any of these genres went anywhere. I just feel that just as the audience is also trying to, you know, there's a lot of audience out there. We can make films for a lot of different audiences. As long as they're getting good content, they're going to be happy. They're going to come for it. It can be a romantic comedy. It can be a, out and out old school romance. It can be a sports film. It can be a spy thriller. It can be a action comedy. It can be any genre. It's important that you just make a film that entertains the audience. As long as you can entertain them, and they feel that their money is worth it, and they've had a good time. Uh, that's what matters the most. It's very easy. It's easier said than done, but that's the reality of it.
No, absolutely. No, you're completely right. And not to end it on a cliche note, obviously, but uh now that Mardani 3 has become, it's done really well, and obviously it's doing well on the streaming front as well now. Um, is it back to the drawing room now for you in terms of ideas and storytelling, or do you think you've got something concrete that, you're kind of working towards?
To be honest, for me, it's right now back to meeting writers, looking at different stories, scripts. Yes, there are some ideas that we already had which is in development right now. Uh, but it's important that one doesn't just jump and run into any story, any script. You need to be fully convinced about it and work your way properly through it. So I think it's important to first have that story and script that you connect with. And for me right now, I don't have that. And I'm working towards it. So yeah, it's just a matter of time, when the right one comes along. I think you're on mute.
Well, lovely. Well, thank you so much, Abhi. It's been so lo beautiful to honestly catch up with you. And we've literally done an autopsy on Mardani 3. And I think this has been quite due, actually, because I've had so many questions and so many thoughts about the
Hmm.
film ever since I've seen it. And I'm so glad that, it's really that sabr has really paid off, for you. And I'm really glad that, things have worked out well. And I know it's not been easy, but I think the way you've really been resilient and so optimistic, I think it's exemplary. I think for any filmmaker to kind of take a leaf out of your book and also be inspired by it. And may you keep making such beautiful human stories, really.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm glad, we got this chance of talking and, having this beautiful conversation. And yeah, hopefully another kick-ass script comes through the door, make it 1 year, shoot, release, and back to talking with you again
Yeah,
about that film.
hopefully. Oh, that would be amazing. I hope that happens for sure.
Yeah.